Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pints and Politics. My name is Drew. I'm sitting here today with Representative Mike Weiner and National Committeeman A.K. Kamara, and we're sitting in Minneapolis at the national headquarters or state headquarters.
Minneapolis Republican
We
headquarters.
just went over this,
We just
and
did.
I still screw it up. But anyway, we're down here today because we just had our state central convention. And what is state central convention, and how does it differ from normal state convention?
Well, the state convention, the state central committee is what the name is called, I guess, and it's delegates from across the state who are elected by their different precincts, BPOUs, to represent them when it comes to voting for leadership and how the party is run. So yesterday was a big day. It was the day that new leadership was up for election. The chairperson, David Hann, was up for election. There was Alex Plekish, Brett Bussman, and Mike Murphy running against him. And on the deputy chair, it was Donna Borgstrom, is the incumbent, versus Kip Christensen.
And Fred Hage.
Fred Hage. I'm sorry.
Hage.
I almost forgot Fred. So those were the candidates that were up yesterday, and the outcome was probably a surprise to some, maybe not others. But Chairman David Hann was not elected, and Alex Plekitt was elected for his position. And as far as the deputy chair, Donna Borgstrom retained her position as deputy chair.
And Joy Orvis was running
sorry.
for secretary. There was no other candidates that had met the criteria, so she was elected via voice acclamation because the current secretary, Jenna Dix, decided not to seek re-election.
Oh, okay. So it was a little bit of a long day yesterday. There was the typical rules, arguments, back and forth that always take place at conventions. And for new people that are coming into it, it's hard to understand. It really is. But some of those are actually very vital, even moving things up and down in the agenda. Some people scratch their head and say, why are we doing this? But there's kind of a method to the madness. You have to understand it a little bit. And if you ever go to the State Central Committee meetings, ask questions. You know, there's other people there that are helpful, understand what's going on. If you're new to it, don't be afraid to ask questions, because this is our party. This is important. The decisions that are made are vital to how our party is run and how it's structured. And we saw maybe a coming together of some of the different factions in the party yesterday. It was kind of a mantra of unity. And like I said, David Hann was replaced with Alex Plekish. And I think you saw, like I said, some of those factions work together in order to make that happen. So as the RNC chair, what's your take?
Yeah, so I'm technically what's called the National Committee Man. And I think your viewers and listeners, this might be helpful to understanding. So every Republican Party in our 50 states and our 6 territories, because the United States has 6 territories, has a Republican Party. And within that Republican Party, there's kind of 2 generalized operating bodies. There's what we call the convention body, who come together for the purposes of doing things like amending the Constitution and also endorsing candidates for statewide office. So that's the body of convention delegate goers. Usually you can get 2,400 or so delegates through that process. The other body is the state central body. They're really the administrative arm of the Republican Party. And so it's literally like, a tenth of the size. I'm terrible at math, by the way, but it's about 348 members. And the allocation changes based off of prior presidential elections. There's like a delegate allotment, but that body comes together to change the bylaws of the party and also to elect party leadership and approve a finance budget on every 2-year basis. So that's a much smaller body. People would call it like the elite part of the Republican Party, but you just have a lot smaller body. That body is elected on off election years versus the state convention body is elected on election years, whether it's the midterms or the larger, the 4-year presidential terms. And my role is I was elected by the state central body to serve as what's called the National Committee Man for the Republican National Committee. Now, I know these are a lot of crazy terms, but again, we have 50 states and 6 territories, and they each have a party. And so each of them send one man and one woman along with the chair of that party. So there's 3 people from all 56. There's 168 of us. And our job is to represent our state's Republican Party interests to the National Republican Party. Like, think about the National GOP. So that's just to give some oversight, understanding of these 2 different bodies, how they interact. And what a convention we had yesterday.
And isn't it also one of the roles of your position, the convention that took place out in Milwaukee,
Yeah.
to endorse our presidential candidate? That is,
Yep. And so when you get elected to be the national committee man, you do get a seat at the table. You're one of the delegates that comes together, again, every 4 years for presidential elections as that delegate body to endorse officially a presidential candidate. But it is still a separate entity and role. So the state, Minnesota, for instance, we have 39 delegates for this year's RNC. And again, those allocations change based off of previous election years, how many Republican votes you actually get, your percentages. But that body comes together to do that and also pass a platform. And so, again, these are the functions of that body. But I'm in the RNC, which, again, is a separate body that is in charge of that aspect, but it's just the administrative side, but at a national level. And I'm afforded a state executive committee position as well. So our national committee man and committee woman, shout out to Emily Novotny Chance. She's the committee woman. We also sit on the state exec committee as well.
so this is great information, because especially with new people coming into the party, there's so many of these levels that it's really hard to understand. And if you understand how the your BPOU works and your endorsing convention there works, what AK is doing is at the level, at the state level, basically. So it's very similar.
Yep.
It's just dealing with the next level, or a higher level.
Yeah, a scaling of the level. And the thing that I always try to impress upon people, sometimes there's this idea that, like, this is for the elites, right? It's not. I can understand why some people might feel that way. As you can see, I'm wearing my Death Row Records shirt, throwback. I love graphic tees. But ultimately, it's for people that care about the party. If you have a heart for the party, then I think you should get more active and involved in the party. Now, some people, they hate the party. They like individual candidates. They say, Mike is the man. I will go to the ends of the earth for Mike. But if it's not Mike, screw it. And that's cool. I think that maybe you shouldn't be involved in the party. I think you should be involved with that individual candidate. There's a million opportunities for you to do great things. But if you care about the party in one way or another, of maybe directing it this way, that you want the ideology to be more reflective of your values that are more constitutionally restrained or restricted, great. If you want it to be like a milquetoast, middle of the road, which I wouldn't suggest, but if that's what you feel and you, again, care about the party, then you should get involved. But that's what I love about this kind of breakdown. Like, it's not for the elite. It's for people that actually just want to make the party work, that want to win. That's the people that should get active and involved. And the great thing is, it's not that hard. You just have to show up to caucus and then raise your hand. And most likely, there'll be maybe a little bit of competition in certain areas. You're probably going to get in.
Well, and I think that's great, because involvement is key here. And what we hear a lot of times is there's the quote unquote establishment. But what is the establishment? This party is driven by the people who are involved. You can do pretty much whatever you want to do as long as you put forth the effort to do it.
Yeah, and here's the best way. I love to explain this to people. The only reason why it feels like you have no power, quote unquote, in any political system is because you actually don't have the support of other people in the system. So there's 2 ways of doing it. You can either go and convince people that they should support you by, making friends, or the crazy thing about American politics, and this is what's amazing, it's so responsive to the people. You could literally show up with like 40 of your best friends on any night of a caucus, and as long as you follow the rules that are already set up, you're going to take over that system. So like, it's wild, because it takes effort and energy. And most people are like, yeah, man, my kid's got this game and I got to go and hang with the boys or whatever. And I get why people don't want to get involved in politics. But I'm saying, for people that are interested, if you can make friends or bring your own friends, the amount of power that you can actually affect on local politics is insane. It's just people don't realize that, like, but that's the way our system's set up.
Yeah, it's the best way to make your voice heard. And the way you phrase that for caucuses, it just reminds me. I got to talk about Rome today. It reminds me.
Every episode, it's Rome.
No, it just reminds me of Caesar when he became governor of Transalpine Gaul, and he was about to launch his campaign into Gaul. There was some big conspiracy, and I'm going to butcher this Gaul's name because it's like Orgetorix or something. He was brought before this like jury for treason. They were going to kill him because he would try to become king of all of Gaul. But he brought 10,000 of his closest friends, all with swords, and then he was kind of able to beat that system.
Yeah, he beat the system, right? Take it over.
Not saying like hostile takeover, but like you can do it in like a diplomatic and like political way. Be with your friends, have a community, and you can change the way that you live.
So, and to break this down, because I like to keep things simple, the party is what we make of it.
100%. And that applies even at a national level. It really does. Like if you want to be active and involved, take the time, energy, make friends or bring your own friends. And it's literally like when people are like, oh, the system, it's so whatever. I agree that it can feel that way, but this is the great thing about our nation being a constitutional republic. The idea that the people are the power, the people have the voice, as long as you understand that and you work towards that end, it can't be beat. Now, there can be suppression efforts, right? People can come in with a lot of money and they can discourage people, but you beat all of that by just saying, well, I'm just going to represent the will of the people. And if you get enough people on your side, isn't that great how that system works? Because you quite literally just need to get people on your side. So if you can't do that, yeah, there's hacks. Coming with a lot of money, it's really easy to buy people, right? And you can do that. I think that it's fleeting. I think that you'll have no loyalty. People will stab you in the back, left and right. But if you are like, I'm really passionate about this thing, and you go and you show up, that's what we're starting to see in school boards across Minnesota.
Yes.
It's literally a bunch of mom and dad saying, screw this. And it's like, oh, this is what we had to do. We just got to convince our friends and neighbors to vote for us. And like, you're going to crush it, yo.
You know, and this is more of a local issue at home. We had an issue with a superintendent in one of the school districts in my area. And it was amazing to see the support that showed up for that superintendent. And everybody thinks that, okay, greater Minnesota, it all bleeds red, right? Well, that's not always the case. And what we saw there was the people on both sides of the aisle, because there are differences, and they came together to support that superintendent and change the school board because they didn't like what had happened with that situation. And the same thing happens in the MNGOP.
Yep.
If you don't like the situation, be persistent because it's not always going to happen overnight. But if you want to see the direction of the party change, it's really up to the people, the body themselves. And even the way the rules work, and I think it was rather well done yesterday. It was controlled. Not really controlled, but the convener did a good job following the rules because the decisions are up to the body.
Yep.
And I think he did a very good job of that yesterday. Some people, if you don't understand Robert's Rules of Order and how that functions, it can be a little bit confusing. But I think yesterday was rather run rather well. I really do.
Yeah, I think sometimes the misperception is that if you're not able to get the thing done that you really want, that it's because like it's rigged against you. Really just comes down to, do you have enough support from the people?
Sure.
And sometimes that's how good are you at convincing the people to support your action. So it's like, it can feel like it's heavy handed, like, oh, they're shutting this down. It's like, well, it's because you might be super passionate about this issue, but if there's not enough of you, correct, you don't get to hijack the meeting. Even if you think it's the most important thing that could ever exist. Welcome to having a constitutional republic with representative democracy. You have to convince other people to support you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just you're being a tyrannical minority, where it's like you're just going to put your thumb in the process in the gear. You're going to stick your finger so it stops the gears turning. He's like, listen, man, you're alone here. If you convince other people, then you're not, stopping the gears. It's actually the will of the people, but you have to convince the other people. And that's how politics works, man. Mm-hmm. That's what I love about it.
And it was stated several times yesterday, it's up to the will of the body.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. So it was interesting, the outcome. We saw a change And I think everybody's hopeful. There's always optimism. I'm sure there's some people who are disappointed the way things worked out, but it was the will of the body. And, we have some goals in Minnesota that we want to accomplish. And I think everybody wants to get behind them. Let's make a trifecta, a Republican trifecta in 2026. And I think everybody can get behind that idea. So, new leadership, let's, instead of fighting amongst ourselves, let's fight against the Democrats. We heard a lot of talk yesterday about unity. Let's put it into action.
Yeah, and since you bring up unity, one of the things that we do is, we're in greater Minnesota, like small town area. You're from the cities. So something we want to do is we want to kind of bridge the divide, because there is a big difference in the way that the metro and the rural agricultural areas or the Iron Range operate.
Yeah, no, I think, like you said, Mike, being able to understand this is our mission, this is our objective. Do you like living in the communist state of Minnesota? Probably not. And for the small percentage of people that do, they're going to continue to fight for that. But if you don't want to see the continuation of what the DFL and Tim Walz and Peggy Flanagan have done to the state, and you don't feel that that's reflective or representative of the average Minnesotan experience, then we actually do have to come together. And like you said, branch together the suburban with the urban, with the exurban, with rural parts of Minnesota, because it's like, yeah, we don't like communism, like straight up, like we're not Marxists. The idea that you're going to give criminal aliens a driver's license, the idea they're going to give criminal aliens, college tuition for free, the idea that you're going to give them access to all of our medical benefits, cash benefits in some way, shape, or form. People don't like that. I don't think the average Minnesotan does, but the average Minnesotan also has no idea that that's what's happening, because the media institutions have captured all the legacy media. And so therefore it's incumbent upon us to come together, because we have enough brain power. Like if you took all the Republicans in different factions, we're all really and we put together like a super brain trust, we're going to be very effective. And even though yesterday during the convention, for the most part, I remained quiet, I came out and I did, gently tap my thumb on the scale. Afterwards, I went up to the person that won, Alex Blekish, and I said, hey, I'm still going to work with you, right? And that's just the way that works. And he and I shook hands. I said, let's get together next week, because I want to try and catch him up on some stuff, because again, in the RNC, it's national committee man, national committee woman, and then party chair. And so it's like, we got inauguration coming up, and his term starts basically, I think it's January 1st. So it's like, I want him to be successful. I want Donna Bergstrom to continue to be successful. I also want Joy Orvis to be successful. I want this party to be successful. So that's the way that politics works. I don't believe in sour grapes, and I'm going to do everything in my power to help make sure that we can actually win elections. And I think the way that you go forward with that is you have to understand, like, beefs are going to be beefs, politics is politics. I know it's cliche. I hate when people say politics is politics, but it really does. Is like, we're pushing for this general thing. And as long as we agree on some basic fundamentals, I think we are able to come together. There's going to be things we disagree with, but look at the overall objective. Do we want to have continued Marxism and communism in Minnesota government? No, so let's not do that then.
Yeah.
But I think there again, you talk about commonality. When we talk about that urban metro divide, human nature is human nature.
Yep.
Whether you're in Sauk Center, Long Prairie, Staples, Minnesota, or you're in Shakopee, St. Paul, human nature still is the same. We want the same things, basically. It's how do you get there? And I think the Republican message has not been promoted well enough, or maybe clearly enough, to apply to a lot of the people's lives in the metro. When we talk about the last election and look at what the Democrats are saying, I spend more time listening to the Democrat operatives than I do the Republicans sometimes. And James Carville talked about this quite a bit. It's the economy, stupid.
Yeah.
That's why the Democrats lost. They spent so much money in the state of Minnesota. $20 billion wasted, $10 billion worth of taxes raised up again. And people are hurting. They were tone deaf to the plight of the people. Whether you're in the metro or greater Minnesota, doesn't matter. They spent all of this money and they did not listen to the people. This bodes well for us.
Yeah.
And hopefully with new leadership in the party, we can all start pulling together. And I always, this is the land of 10,000 lakes. I say we all dip our canoe paddle and start paddling in the same direction, and we can go downriver or upriver, however we want to say, very effectively. But if we're all paddling in different directions, the canoe goes nowhere.
Yeah, you'll spin in circles, and then you'll end up having more satanic displays at the Minnesota State Capitol.
Hey,
That's a great segue.
segue.
That's
because
perfect.
that's what's next on the list.
I am a professional.
Oh yeah, we'll do a professional over there.
That is creating quite a
Yeah,
buzz today.
what's going on with that, Mike? I believe you were seeing some stuff on Facebook, maybe even tagged in some stuff on Facebook.
Well, we were setting up and getting ready for today's episode. That has been all the buzz, and I believe Alpha News has already got a story on. And Alpha News does an amazing job of getting things out there in the public. This does not bode well, I think, for our state. If you look at the numbers, I think 70% of the state is Christian based. And now you have a satanic display in our state capital. And that doesn't resonate with a lot of people. No, we do have freedom of religion.
Yeah.
So is that allowed in the state capital? You can say it is. But we're also a country that we're very forgiving on a lot of things.
Very tolerant, is what I would say.
Yeah, this
Very
does
tolerant.
not set well with a lot of people in the state of Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we saw what happened down in Iowa, right? I'm just waiting. I mean, if you guys remember Senator Dan Hall, he used to have Solomon's sword of, is it knowledge? But he literally had like a giant sword. So I feel like if he was still a state senator, he might swing up in there with that sword and chop the head off of the satanic display. But here's the thing. Like, yeah, we have freedom of religion, all that different stuff. But I just think it's such a bad look that they're like promoting it because there's this tie with Marxism that goes into like Luciferian. Like there are people that literally worship Satan, but a lot of the Satanists are just atheists that are making fun. But still, there is power in this imagery, I believe. And I think it's evil and I think it's demonic. But there's also a point where you have to say, if the people don't want it to be displayed, why display it there? Like find a corner somewhere or whatever. And I just think it's a bad look. But at the same time, this is what the DFL does in the state, man. Yeah. They support the most radical stuff that is off-putting. And I think I think that there's not going to be a whole lot of promotion of it. It's like, I think there's a part of them that want to do it to like satiate their cult, but they're hoping it doesn't blow up. I hope it blows up so then there's such outrage that they're like, okay, we got to shut down the display.
Yeah, and something interesting that I've learned, I went down this rabbit hole I've been hearing ex-Satanists do like interviews, and there was one guy, he was raised in it, and he was abused like sexually, physically, emotionally, psychologically. And one of the things he said in this interview is that growing up as a Satanist, that he was hit with two conflicting messages. The first being that you need to kill yourself, and the second being that you need to live by whatever means necessary. And growing up, that's just got to mess with you. And in a way, I kind of see that in some of the DFL policies where like, we got to adopt all these policies that'll cripple the economy. It'll ruin the fabric of the society. But at the same time, we need to maintain our power and maintain this base coming in by any means necessary, even if it's like ballot harvesting or just kind of shady like mail-in ballot stuff.
Yeah, I have often said in public that the DFL and the Democrats nationwide have become a death cult. Yeah. Like they are pro-death in so many of their policies. Whether they're out there encouraging, women to not have children, not have families, to be worried about the environment, whether they're out there encouraging, mothers and fathers to chop off their children's genitals and pump them full of cross-sex hormones before they actually go through puberty, which will sterilize them, whether they're talking about instituting euthanasia across this country and having, government-assisted medical assistance in dying, aka suicide, whether they're talking about a woman has a right to choose abortion up until the time that her child is born, and in some cases afterwards, and strip all personhood rights. That is the DFL. Literally in Minnesota, that is the Democrat Party across the nation. They're a death cult. And so it's not surprising that they embrace things like Satanism. And I don't think that it's every single Democrat. I actually think the majority of Democrats, like in a state like Minnesota, have no idea that their party is a death cult. And it's sad. There are the tried and, true, tested, dyed-in-the-wool activists that are Marxist communists. they know what they are, and they have like such a nihilistic vision of the world. And like you said, it's like kill yourself, but have power. Like for what end? To what means? And it just doesn't make sense.
Well, and I think you're exactly right about most of the Democrats do not realize what the party stands for anymore. A prime example of that would be before the last election, before Walz was picked as VP, I posted something on Facebook about the tampons in boys' bathrooms.
Yeah.
And I immediately got attacked and said, this isn't true, this never happened, this is all lies. Within 2 weeks, all of a sudden it's on the national news because Walz got picked, and it made the media finally picked up on this. And people are like, this is crazy. We've never heard anything. So the media is not doing its job of really showing what's going on here. And they're running cover for the Democrat propaganda and bad policies. And it's getting wrapped up. It sounds good. Most people, even out in greater Minnesota, you hear this quite a bit. Well, my daddy was a Democrat. My grandpa was a Democrat. We vote Democrat.
That's tribalism.
And then you say, well, do you understand that, are you pro-life? Well, of course I am. The Democrat Party at their national convention, must have been 10 years ago, said there is no place for pro-life in the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
That was a public statement. So really, I don't think the Democrats in this state really realize what their party stands for anymore, because the media is covering it.
And more to that point, right? There's an acknowledgement by certain members of certain bodies within the DFL apparatus. Was it the Senate DFL that came out and announced their Blue Dog Democrat caucus or whatever? Like the biggest crock of crap you could ever imagine, because they're only trying to, like, I went and looked at every district. These are districts that, because the Senate is only up every 4 years, right? There's a couple times it's 2 years, but point is that they weren't up this last time. A lot of those districts have a Republican House rep on both sides of their district. Yeah. So they're trying to hedge their bets of like, oh, hold on, we're the Blue Dog Democrats. It's like, you probably voted, I know you voted, for every single leftist, progressive, Marxist bill that came down the pike. Not one time on any of those bills that got passed was there any pushback at all. Zero. The only ones that didn't get through, like the Uber bill or whatever in its form that it was supposed to get through, and then that bedside assistance or whatever that Mayo kind of shot down. Like, you had some opposition, but that was because politically there was no way for the DFL to spin it, so Walz put the kibosh on those. But otherwise, they were lockstep. But yeah, to your point, they understand that that the DFL message does not resonate with average Minnesotans. But because Walz got picked, it gave this national spotlight, and the DFL knows that they're in trouble, especially in these districts where you still had some splits between the House and the Senate. I think that it's going to be even more red. And if we pick up a couple of those Senate seats, we have a majority, man.
Well, I think that really, and maybe we should close with this, but that really emphasizes why we need that unity that was described at the convention yesterday, and why we as Republicans need to come together. Ronald Reagan talked about the 80%. There's 80% we agree on. The 20%, let's fight about that once we're in control. Let's get a trifecta in 2 years. So I can imagine as a House member going from starting with a Democrat trifecta. Now we're tied in the House, and in 2 years we could have a trifecta the other way. If we decide to work together and really realize that the Democrats are the communist, I always call them Comrade Walz.
Yep.
The communist DFL in this state, if we realize as Republicans that is our opponent, not each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, my closing sentiment is, again, as national committee man for the state of Minnesota, I'm elected to a 4-year term, right? So the will of that body at that state central meeting that elected me, and along with National Committee woman Emily Novotny Chance, we have a role to serve, and that is to help turn Minnesota red. And so, again, even if I stood in opposition in any way, shape, or form, I want our party to succeed. I want us to be able to go forward. I'm not a guy that's like, pull resources, whatever. No, we need to win. We need all hands on deck. I'm going to continue to advocate for that. Some of the things that I've been doing as national committee man, I've been traveling across the entire state. I've been to, I always kind of lose track, but it's like 47 or 48 BPOU functions, different functions. Some I've doubled up. I've done 2 or 3 events because they keep asking me to come back. And my whole position is, if you're BPOU chair, basic political organizing unit, and you want me to come out and speak, because, I do John Justice every Friday from 7:30 to 9. I've got like 150,000 TikTok followers. I'm a content creator or whatever that's trying to grow. So some people are like, oh, I recognize AK. He's like a little celebrity. If you ask me to come out to your district, I will come out for free. If it's a little bit further away, maybe you want to throw me like a little bit, like $50 for gas or something. But outside of that, I will come out. I will speak to your group. And so I'm going to continue to do that. But I'm also going to try and connect national resources back to Minnesota to help the Republican Party win. Your dream of a trifecta is my dream, brother. And then I also, in 28, want to flip the state red for the first time. That it will then be 56 years from the last time that Republicans, that the Minnesota went Republican. But I just think that this is what the will of the body was, the state central body, which does represent a larger body because the folks that vote to elect the state central delegates is the larger delegate body. So, this is what the will of the Republican Party operatives, not operative, but activists is. And we just got to move forward, and I hope for the best, and not just hoping, actually making actions to help make
put in
our
the
party
effort.
succeed. Yeah.
Yeah. So, by the way, you mentioned socials. What are they, real quick?
Yep. So you can follow me on X, Facebook, and Instagram at Real AK Kamara, and that's AKKAMARA. You can follow me on TikTok at AK Kamara. You can follow me now on Parler. They're coming back, and they reached out to me at AK Kamara. And then you can also just go to my website, akkamara.com. Isn't that good, Brandon?
Oh, yeah. Hey, I mean, I'm just waiting for you to start making guns.
I know, right? Yeah, I know, man.
But
Eventually, I'll get that sponsorship deal.
yeah, right. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. Very special episode of Pints and Politics. Special guest AK Kamara,
And where are we
representative.
again?
We are in. I'll mess it up, man. You hit it up.
Minneapolis Republican headquarters.
Yeah, great place. I love being here. This is our second time being here. Fifth podcast here.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. You can follow us on Rumble at Pints and Politics or on YouTube at Pints and Politics MN. Thank you so much for watching. God bless. All right.